So we've now gone over the different ways that you can assign different types of assignments to students, the way you can formulate how the students submit them, and we've also talked about grading to a degree. And in the previous videos, we discussed how you can actually create comments that let students know what they needed to change, and how you can use the Crocodoc to really kind of mark up their document. But some of you may have said, well, wait a second, this isn't really that great because even though I can mark it up, even though I can put comments, I have a defined rubric that I use when I assign papers for my students to write. And so if I'm really going to deduct points, I want to make sure the student understands which portion of that rubric resulted in the loss of points. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create another assignment and we're going to create a rubric for this assignment. Okay, so we're going to come over here to our assignments tab, and we are going to create a brand new assignment. I'm going to call this one Lab Report 3. Okay, so we're calling it Lab Report 3. Again, I'm going to say please submit your lab report. Okay. I'm going to leave it as an online submission with a file upload. I'm going to make my restricted file types doc, docx, and PDF. It's going to go under lab reports, be worth points. I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to even worry about a due date right now. So I'm going to, the way it is right now, save. Okay, so I've saved it. And now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on this plus rubric button. So I'm going to add a rubric to this assignment. Now, you can find rubrics, but we're actually going to create a brand new rubric here. Okay, we're going to create this rubric, we're going to save it, and then that way we can find it later. So I'm going to call this an example rubric. Okay, and let's go ahead and say that I had 5 sections to my paper. I'm going to say I have an introduction that's worth 20 points. I'm going to add another criterion. So here's the really cool thing. As you go along, you can either click OK when you're done, or if you need to add the next item, just click plus criterion, and that will bring up the next row, and you can just keep defining this out here. Now, you'll notice you also have this link here that will allow you to find an outcome. We're not going to talk about that just yet. That'll be the next tutorial that we're going to talk about outcomes. So for now, we're just going to create criterions, okay? So, introduction. I'm going to call this materials and methods because in lab we have materials and methods that we write. That'll be worth 20 points. And I'm just going to keep creating the different sections. We'll do discussion. Actually, we'll do results first. That'll be worth 20 points. Add a criterion, discussion, which we'll say is worth 20 points. And then finally, let's do citations, worth 20 points. Obviously, your rubric's going to be different than mine, but you'll notice that this accounts for 100 total points based on my rubric here. And now you're given 3 options before you create this rubric. You can say, I'll write free-form comments when assessing students, I'll use this rubric for assignment grading, and hide score total for assessment results. Of these 3, I'm only going to check this one. And you'll notice when I check this one, it's going to hide this because if you're using this for assignment grading, obviously that's going to show the total points. Now, just to let you know, the reason I'm not going to check this is if you check this, it's going to create an extra window in your rubric when you go to grade the papers. So if you want that extra window, then you can have it. But essentially what's going to happen, as we'll see, when we go into SpeedGrader, the rubric is going to appear over on the right-hand side of the screen, and we're going to have the criteria along with the point values available for that rubric. If I check this box, then when I go into SpeedGrader, there's going to be a third column between this and these, and that third column is going to be a comment column, kind of right in the middle, where I can write comments. So if you want to include the comments for each of the criteria, check this box, but just realize it's going to result in you having to kind of finagle the size of the side panel here. And I'll show you that in just a moment. So I'm going to do it without that first, and then we can always make changes. So I'll create the rubric. And so this example rubric is now tied to this assignment. I'm going to publish the assignment as we've done before, and now I'm going to come over to my modules, and I'm going to add this assignment to my module. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to add in Lab Report 3 to Module 1. There it is at the bottom. And then again, I'm going to go to Settings, and I'm going to go to Student View. All right, so I'm in Student View. Let's jump on over here to Modules, and let's go to Lab Report 3. And then just as I did last time, I'm going to upload that syllabus file I have. So I'm going to Submit, choose a file, because really what I'm wanting to show you here is how the rubrics work. So I'll choose that. I will submit the assignment. And once the assignment is submitted, I will leave Student View. So it's turned in, all that is good. I'm going to leave Student View. Okay, so now as the instructor, I'm on the page for the assignment. Remember also, if I went home, I'd get the notification panel here. But since I'm already here, I'm going to jump into SpeedGrader. So here is SpeedGrader. Okay. So I'm going to load SpeedGrader. Okay, so this should look very familiar to what we've seen previously. But notice now, underneath the grade, I'm going to get to view my rubric. So here on the right-hand side, I can click View Rubric. Okay. And you can see now, here I have my different criteria, I have the ratings, and then I have my point values. Now, some of you may say, okay, well that's all well and good, but I really want to first and foremost focus on grading the paper. Okay, well if you want to do that, just click on this panel here. You'll see 3 dots. You click on that, and it's going to close this panel so you can get the whole document. So if you want to mark up the document first, you can. And then when you're ready to get your rubric back, you just come back over here. You'll see those 3 dots, and your cursor will change into a little hand. Click it again. That opens it up. And if you want to expand the size of your rubric panel to make it a little easier to kind of see what you're writing and where you're writing it, you can click and hold those dots and then drag. And that will increase the size of your rubric window. So I can now go through here. I can still comment up as we've done before. I can say, you know, as we've discussed before, let's choose a point comment. I could say it should be 1408. And then over here I can actually add in my point values for each of these different things. So let's say that this is worth 5, 20, 20, 20. So again, this is an 85 just as I gave last time. And when I save this, notice that it updates my overall grade here and then includes the breakdown of the rubric. So this is a really great tool that you can use so that your students effectively know which part of the assignment they got right and which part they got wrong. Now real quick, before we finalize this and we go into student view, I'd like to show you, as I said, what happens if I click that additional checkbox to load the comments between the criteria and the actual assessment. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to actually choose to edit my rubric by clicking on this pencil here. And I'm going to click on that checkbox, and I will update the rubric. Okay. And then I'm going to come back in here to SpeedGrader. I'm going to open back up that document. Okay, so notice it saved everything that I did, and now if I go to View Rubric, now I have those comment panels. So I would actually need to increase the size of this window so that I could then say, you put the wrong class for the title in your introduction. You can also say, you know, this was a great point that you made here. Okay. And you can also save this comment or these comments for reuse. So let me go ahead and save this. And that ultimately can make it to where if you need to reference a comment again at a later time, you have access to that comment. So let me go ahead and turn that off. I can save this. I can submit this. And now that, of course, will update to where I should have 1 out of 1 of my submissions actually graded. One other thing I may have not pointed out is in SpeedGrader, I've only been working with a test student, but understand up here you could actually access your entire class This is a drop-down menu, so you can actually find out any of your other students who have turned stuff in, where they are here. You can view additional sections if you have multiple sections in a single course. And then you can also just thumb through students by clicking on these arrows to the left and right. So that makes it to where you're not having to go back and open the next students and then go back and open the next students. Okay? So that is how to use rubrics. What we're going to talk about in the next video are outcomes. And we're going to take a look at how we can use outcomes with rubrics to really give our assignments and the grades associated with them additional information.